This is Dillon.
And this is Fortune, also known as a Restless Mon on YouTube.
And welcome to our 8th episode of Cinescussion.
Oh my god, 8. I feel so old in podcast years.
I know, right? So every 2 weeks, 2, 4, 6, 8. How many months is that? I just finished work. My brain power is drained.
This is the 4th month then, I guess.
Mm-hmm. No, we're in there though. Welcome back, guys. We wanted to do kind of a throwback idea to something we did at the beginning of the podcast and kind of do a movie recommendation idea. And the concept behind it was we were going to throw 3 movies at each other that really made us either feel something from the film itself or just hit us at kind of the right time in our lives to have some sort of emotional impact on us.
Yeah, definitely. And one of them that I recommended him, like 2 of them are films that I really liked. I don't know if I would say they're my favorite films, but I really liked them. But one of them is actually my favorite film, one of my favorite films of all time. So,
and I'm most excited to talk about that one. Let me tell you, because even after I watched it, I was like, "How have I never seen this before?"
And the crazy thing is, there's so many people that when I recommend that movie, they have never heard of it, and that's what's crazy to me. It's like, I wish this movie had been more popular or whatever. Like, it's just so good. It's so 10 out of 10 for me. Like, I'm just like, how does everybody not go, oh yeah, that one, that's great, you know?
Yeah, I'm going to digress because I want to get to the movies we talked about before that. But after watching that,
for sure,
a lot of movies I have seen since that came out feel a lot less original.
Yeah, no, for 100%. Yeah. I'm not even joking. Like, 100, like even Arrival. In some ways, there are aspects of it that I'm like, I feel like the short story of this, they liked Contact to some extent. Oh. But they did something really different with it, with the language and everything, which I liked. I thought that was fascinating. But
yeah, they did for sure. But so the 3 movies I recommended to you, which we will get to in a little bit, was number 1. I don't know if many people have seen this little indie flick before, but it came out in the early 90s. It was a little movie starring a young, almost middle-aged actor just kind of making his bones named Robert De Niro.
Yeah,
it was directed by Martin Scorsese. It's called Goodfellas.
So many people haven't heard of that guy, so we'll have to catch you guys up.
No. Yeah, I really, this movie, we'll get there. This movie, I don't know if it necessarily hit me at a time in my life, but I think what hit me most was I think I found the last person in America who hasn't seen it. And
you are not wrong. I also have to say that I guess I'll comment on that later once you label it. But one of your other films, that was my first film, but just I've seen from that director actually. So.
Yep. My second film, Heading Your Way, was The Graduate by Mike Nichols, starring Dustin Hoffman. Another classic, but this one goes a little further back. It came out in the late 60s, circling back to my love of that new Hollywood wave era.
It was so much fun, and it was so much funnier than I thought it was going to be. That was a pleasant surprise. Like, I think in the first 15 minutes of that movie, I was laughing quite a bit, and I was like, wait, this movie isn't at all what I thought it was going to be.
Yep, that's how I felt when I first saw it too. And not only that, for a movie that was made in the 60s, it feels, not from a setting, but just from what the characters are experiencing and where they're at in their lives, very relatable and modern and painful and hilarious and awkward and all of those things.
Honestly, I agree. Like, because I felt like at 20, I don't think I was as awkward as him, but I felt like my mind inside, I was just like him. I was just better at pretending that I wasn't on the outside. So like the scene where he's like, "Oh, I need to go now, Mrs." Like I was like, that was totally me at that age. Like, but I'd try to play it off cooler, but that's what my mind would be doing. Like at the time,
yeah, I need to go.
I need to go.
And my last one, which this movie really does touch me because I do consider myself a fan of romance movies, but I'm also very picky with the romance movies that I enjoy.
For sure.
And my favorite kind of series of romance movies is the Before trilogy, Before Sunset, Before Sunrise, and Before Midnight.
And they've been on my list for quite a while too, so I was actually really happy you recommended this. And the sad thing is, a lot of his films have been on my list, and I've actually never seen a Richard Linklater film until this, actually.
Really?
Yes, it was my first one. So
you've never seen School of Rock, even? I mean,
nope.
That's surprisingly a Richard Linklater film. That's a family movie that is just so much fun. But
And I've
Yeah.
never seen Boyhood either, even though I know like a lot about it. So
I haven't seen Boyhood either. That's okay though. But this movie, I felt that for kind of a day in the life movie where you really just spend the entire runtime with a couple, potential couple, getting to know each other and walking around this city.
yeah,
I forgot. Does the first one take place? The third one's in Rome. The second one,
I
the
believe
first
this
one's in Vienna, right?
the first one's in Vienna. Yeah, they
Yeah,
decide to get off the train in Vienna.
yeah, that's
So
right. Um, Sorry, I lost my train of thought.
no, it's totally
Um,
fine.
and I lost my train of thought because I was realizing that I said it backwards. It's sunrise, sunset, midnight. So I
Okay,
had you watch Before Sunrise,
before sunrise. Yeah,
1995. Yep. Ethan Hawke, Julie Delpy.
yeah.
Um, and to me, it was the most authentic feeling film of people developing romantic feelings for each other.
I
And I
I
think it's
I would
incredibly
agree.
beautiful. And as the project goes on, where these were released in 10-year increments, kind of
Hmm.
reviewing their relationship over 30 years now, I think it's become such a beautiful and heartfelt and painful and amazing project that I have absolutely loved.
And yeah, and honestly, I enjoyed it so much that I'm actually super excited to see the next two now. Like, and I almost feel like really lucky that I don't have to wait 10 years in between. Like, I can just
Yeah.
watch them. I'm almost like, I think waiting paid off because this week I'm definitely going to be watching the next two with probably butterflies, just because I really like this couple. I like Julie Delpy. For those of you that don't know, Julie Delpy is a French actress. She's been in quite a few things. I believe she's a French actress.
Hmm.
For some of you more mainstream, if you did like the early 2000s or late 90s American Werewolf in Paris remake, basically
Hmm.
she starred in it with oh my god, Tom Everett Scott, was that his name? I feel bad. Anyway, but
Shame
yeah,
on
she
you.
starred in that film. I know, I feel terrible. That was one of those remakes that wasn't like as good thematically, but it was kind of just a fun movie. And I have to admit, the comedy in that film was hilarious, especially with the whole seeing dead people. Like some of those scenes till this day make me like, you scared her away, and he's like, I scared her, like that.
Yeah, yeah,
And then eventually
exactly.
him jumping out the window. Like even just thinking about it, it makes me laugh. So that might be one for a movie list at some point just to rewatch because that was a really funny movie. They definitely went with more of a comedy horror aspect with the remake. But anyway, Julie Delpy was in that, so anybody our age who saw that, you've seen her before in something.
And speaking of
uh,
horror, October's coming up. Wink, wink.
yes,
What did you
yes.
recommend to me, good sir?
So I recommended. Let's see. I recommended Blue is the Warmest Color. I also recommended Contact, which is the film that I was saying is one of my favorite films of all time. And then I also recommended Life as a House, which I haven't seen in a very long time, but I remember seeing it, especially in high school. I was going through a bit of a misanthropic venture where I was very, you know, I was having a hard time connecting with a lot of people, and I wasn't really a fan of the world and all these things. And Hayden Christensen's character in that film at the time, I really could relate to. And in some, on bad days, I suppose I could still sometimes, but like just his character and the way he kind of gets put in these awkward, really awkward situations, at least for someone like him, with this kind of
Hmm.
backstory with his dad trying to build a relationship for in a way it's kind of selfish reasons in a way, but it doesn't make like kind of the ending less charming. So yeah, it was
Hmm.
just one of those films that it has problems in terms of like characters still, the motivations in some ways are kind of selfish. They are like, I can't like condone everything that's happening, but it really left a it left a lot with me at that time. It really, really did. And I remember watching it a few times because I just liked it. So it was something that kind of jumped to mind when I was thinking about something that touched me at some point in my life. So yeah, I put it
Yeah.
on the list. And it'll be interesting to
Oh,
hear you talk about it because Blue is the Warmest Color I saw once years ago and really liked it, recommended it. And then this I saw a
mhm.
few times, but also years ago. And you've seen
Yeah.
them both more recently. So it'll be nice because, like, I don't remember every single scene, but I remember the vast majority of it. So, like, it'll be fun to hear you go on about it, too. So.
Yep. Well, let's start there.
Okay.
So, quick synopsis for everybody. Life is a House, directed by Irwin Winkler, who coincidentally produced Goodfellas. Had no idea. And these movies share that in common. And I don't think anything else. um,
Very
so,
different kinds of movies.
right. But it's a 2001 drama starring Kevin Kline and Hayden Christensen about it's really themes around reconnection. It's about a father who really lives in this shitty shack. Um, he's divorced. He has a son that's into drugs and all sorts of other really, really tough things. And he learns that he has a terminal illness and he only has months to live based off that terminal illness. So he decides that there's no time like the present because that's all he has.
Yeah, pretty much.
And that he wants to use the remainder of his life building a house, the house that what we think he always wanted. And he uses that as an opportunity to reconnect with his ex-wife, his son, and develop a legacy before he leaves. So, as you can tell, it's a pretty heavy movie, and it's also played very heavy. It's very dramatic.
It is. They hold no punches. They're like, this is a melodrama, and you will know that.
Yep, you will
pretty
all
much.
know.
Yeah, pretty much.
Let me tell you what I liked.
For sure.
Kevin Kline. What I recognize from this movie? I haven't seen a lot of Kevin Kline movies.
Yeah.
I know of Kevin Kline. I recognize him, but I can't recall another Kevin Kline movie I've seen, or at least where he's really in the spotlight.
Yeah, I'm actually a fan of his, and I agree. Like, I don't get to see a lot of dramatic performances from him ever. He's usually just doing like comedy or what have you. Like, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Well, he's excellent as the father in this movie. And you really see the work that he's putting in to connect with his family. And then an amazing performance by Hayden Christensen.
For sure,
Pre Darth Vader, Anakin Skywalker, lightsaber swinging, force choking, back flipping Jedi.
Yeah, especially I liked a lot of his older stuff too. Like I liked Shattered Glass too. I thought he was great in that as well. Like,
ooh, I've never seen Shattered Glass. What's that?
Ooh,
about?
that's a good one. I'm told it's based on a true story. It's one of those things. I would recommend don't look it up because there are some interesting surprises in it. But essentially, we'll just say he's a journalist. That's what I'm gonna leave it at.
Say no more.
It's a very good movie that has some surprises to it. But Shattered Glass, I definitely recommend, and it was one of his earlier films, if I remember right.
Awesome. Well, he plays the troubled son in this movie, and man, he gives a performance. The pain that he goes through and kind of the development of the relationship with his father as he's forced to come along on this journey to build this house and destroy what used to be. It's really cathartic. I kind of recall a scene where they're tearing down, or were they tearing down the old structure? Yeah, they were tearing down the bones of the old structure as they built the frame of the new house. And there's a scene of them, like I said, it's melodramatic and it's played kind of straight, so it could come off as cheesier with worse performances, but the performances are really good and they really sell it. But they're building the frame of what's going to be the new house, and the father and son, it's the first time that they've had any moment to bond. In fact, the father basically drags the son to spend the summer with him, in this new area. And they're swinging these sledgehammers, breaking down the frame of the old house. And it's the first moment of connection they get. And you're like, oh, goddamn, this is beautiful. And as someone who didn't grow up with a father figure, I was like, must be nice. Must be nice.
I'm sorry for laughing. That's not funny, but it kind of is, like the way you did that. We've had conversations about this. I can feel you. I feel you.
Yeah. But I would say the entire movie is around finding the opportunity to. It's kind of played straight to the point of there's no time like the present. We don't have a whole lot of time on this earth, and if you only had 4 months to live, would you take that time to develop a home with your family? Would you take time to? By the
way, just so you know, I can really hear Rose's collar quite a bit.
Rose.
Sorry, guys. Rose is his dog.
Rose is just rolling. Go lay down.
Yeah, she is. Quite a bit.
As I was saying, would you take the time to develop those relationships with your family, or what would you do if you had 4 months to live? How would you spend that time? And can you feel proud of the decisions you've made up to this point, and where have they gotten you? You know?
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
But tell me a little more about what made this movie kind of hit at that time for you.
At that time, I didn't have the happiest like middle school and high school experience. You know, like kids at around that age can just be kind of awful.
Mm-hmm.
And it kind of made me really, really misanthropic in a lot of ways. So, I mean, his character is very much like that. Like, he kind of has a negative view of things. Doesn't seem like he has a very good view of humans in general. You know,
Mm-hmm.
and I felt like I could just really relate to him at that time, just trying to be someone who's just like getting through life at that age. And you have all these things that are coming up that people expect you to kind of have almost like empathy or like some kind of desire to do, and you just don't. And it's more frustrating to you to be made to like pretend that you do because that's normal, you know. And so I feel like just at that time I just kind of related to his character to some extent, but I also originally watched it because I like Kevin Kline a lot. So
Yeah.
I even though his motivations because he's dying are quite selfish in a way, because it's like, oh, so I want to, you know, establish this relationship because I'm dying. And it's like, yeah, would you have if you weren't dying? But at the same
Mm-hmm.
time, that's the same argument you have all the time where it's like, yeah, but because I am, I'm focusing on what's important to me, and I realize that because I want to fix this relationship. Um, and I
Yeah.
empathize for him, but I also do feel kind of like, yeah, but you know, like I can't help being like, but yeah, like, so if you weren't dying, this probably wouldn't be happening, right? Like, you know what I mean? Like you know, to some extent. And I'm sure as things progress and Hayden Christensen's character finds out more, uh, I like that they didn't just make it like a sad thing. I like that he actually feels betrayed, because
Yeah.
I can empathize with that. Like, especially when you find out. Like, I liked his anger. I liked that he felt betrayed. I liked that they didn't just portray like this romanticized, oh, it's a wonderful time. It's like, because technically what Kevin Kline's doing is kind of selfish, and it is kind of fucked up in a way. So it's like
He's
in it,
kidnapping that young man.
well, it's not
Yeah.
kidnapping, but it's like,
I
oh,
know, not
you're
literally.
dying. Yeah, but I get what you mean. You get what I'm saying, though. Like, it's like, oh, you're dying, so you're trying to fix this relationship with your son, and then if it does work, you're gonna get him to love his dad again, and then find out he's about to lose him. Like, it's kind of like there's no happy ending here, really. You know,
Mm-hmm.
um, in a lot of ways. I mean, depending on how you look at it. So I think for me, it was interesting characters with good performances. Like you said, it is kind of a cheesy melodrama, but because their performances are great, I
Mm-hmm.
personally really liked it. And I felt like it was there were interesting characters enough with a few interesting dilemmas. And for me, it was just interesting to see how they came together. Basically, I think for me is just, you know, it was interesting,
Yeah.
I guess is how I thought about it.
Something that I've noticed that's always hard, like the change that the father goes through in this movie, and you said, you know, it is selfish because he just realized that he's going to die. That's a huge event that
Yeah.
we all experience, are going to experience at some point
Yeah.
in our lives, you know. And I've never seen anybody in real life outside of film make any sort of impactful change without a compelling moment or event or realization. And there's few things more compelling than like that real recognition of like, I'm on a running clock, and that
Yeah.
clock is kind of at the end of its road.
And
So
I think that's why
it's
it's sad, because I agree
yeah.
with you. Like, I think it's sad that that's true. Like, it
Mm-hmm.
shouldn't be that way, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah,
but
but you're right. There's not much point. I thought what I really came to love it at the end. I actually don't like the way it was portrayed. I like that it happened, but in the beginning, the son is seen. It's early 2000s, so you know he has
yeah, it is.
piercings and dyed hair and wears
Yeah,
tight clothes, and that's all
yeah,
edgy and like
because that's
unacceptable in modern civilization. You know
yeah,
what I
that
mean?
was supposed to be at the time. Yeah, if
Right.
you watch it
And
now, you're like, what's the big deal? Like, it's
yeah,
like,
and at the end you see him, he's wearing like a button down shirt and a belt.
yeah,
He's like walking
yeah,
around and you're like, he made
yeah, yeah. You're
it.
basically just like, he's become a sheep. Like, good for
But
you. It's like,
you know, like the way that it was done kind of made me chuckle a little bit.
yeah,
But you know what you were saying, kind of that selfish uh aspect that the father's that's driving the father's decisions. It's also the opportunity to leave some sort of an impact on your family. And
Yeah.
fortunately, by the end, he is able to leave a lasting positive impact on those
e-
around him. And I thought that was really beautiful.
Exactly. And that's kind of, I feel like that's one of the reasons I liked it too, because ultimately what he's doing is selfish, and I feel like, to me, I'm very analytical, so that's how I'd see it. I'd be like, even if it's genuine, you wouldn't be doing this if you weren't dying. But by the end of the film, he did win me over, and
Mm-hmm.
and I agree with you. Like, that's why it worked for me. Like, they managed to make him still kind of win me over and be like, I'm still very happy for you in a way, like, and I like that. So
Yeah.
I also thought the
And
gesture was really nice too. Just like, that's why I feel like the name is very on the nose, but it's symbolically, it's a very nice gesture, and I think it's a very nice
mhm.
ending personally. So
Yeah, I thought it was a very sweet ending too. I liked the ending a lot.
yeah.
And you know what? The name is on the nose. The movie's on the nose.
Yeah,
Everything is on the nose.
it's one of those
In fact,
films.
he's talking to his son throughout that whole movie, looking at his nose piercing, like that needs to be off your nose.
Yo, it's just foreshadowing. It's
Yeah,
just
exactly.
foreshadowing.
It's like
The
this movie
director
is on the nose.
the director knew what he was doing.
Jeez.
Oh,
No, but I liked it. I think out of the three, this was the one that um felt the least kind of fascinating and interesting to me, but I did think
yeah.
it was a beautiful story and portrayed really well by the actors.
Cool. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I would probably agree with that, to be honest, because like
Yeah.
I feel like both of the other two, like, one's just a masterpiece, and the other one's just like so visceral and real feeling that it's just fascinating to me. So,
Mhm.
so
What
yeah, you're
was your least interesting?
so, so you're just trying to set me up here because you know everyone's gonna
I'm
flame me
not.
for this.
I'm just curious.
So I'm
What
going
was
with
the
the
least?
one. The one that I find the least interesting, but I still really liked it. I'm just saying, it was just, of the other two, it was my least favorite. But yes, I liked Goodfellas. It was a good movie. But
Mhm.
I've told you this before.
But
so basically, so
what made
basic.
Goodfellas the least interesting movie?
Hang on.
I'm kidding. I'm teasing
First
you.
of all, shut up. Shut up. I know you love your mafia movies, okay? And
Mhm.
most people do. I'll get into it. I really liked it. I thought it was a very good movie. I have no real issues with it. It was a good movie. I like Scorsese. So so basically, the best way to describe Goodfellas to me, if I'm gonna kind of just go into it, you I'll have to say, I loved how it started. I love that it just starts with them driving, and then you hear the tapping, and
Yep.
then it just like it starts with Ray Liotta. He's narrating, because he's narrating the entire film. It's all from Ray
Mhm.
Liotta's, to some extent, from Ray Liotta's perspective, really, because he's narrating the whole film, and because he's narrating, you kind of assume it's going to end with him saying, "And this is how I died," or he got away with it, or he ends up being the head of the family or something, because he's the one telling the story. So you kind of assume, he's going to be there the whole way.
Yeah.
And it kind of just starts with this scene of them transporting what they think of a body, and it's basically you're kind of starting with the middle of the film in a way. You
Mhm.
don't know this, but like, and the person's still alive, so they just pull over, and there's like this really violent, like, stab to death scene, and
Mhm.
but it's just done in a way that's so nonchalant, like, like,
Yep.
it kind of just lets you know what you're in the mood, like
What
what
you're
you're
in
gonna be
for?
experiencing the entire film,
Yeah.
which I really appreciated. Like, I won't lie, like, it happened, and I was just laughing. I was like, oh my god, like, I was like,
Yep.
okay, so it's that kind of movie. Cool. All right, I'm in.
Mhm.
And then you proceed to kind of follow Ray Liotta from kind of his teenage years through his adult years. And one thing I do have to say about the film that I really liked was it really, really establishes not just like the setting and like a mafia family, but it really makes you feel knowledgeable about the family and like what's going on, because he's really explaining how things work as he
Mhm.
learned how things work. Like, he's explaining how, his parents didn't like the idea of, him joining these groups and everything, obviously, because parents worry about their kids, but he liked the status. He liked feeling protected. He liked being one of the in guys. Like he liked being part, like from the get-go, this is what he wants. You know, there's no like coaxing him into this. Like this is
Yeah.
like his goal even as a teenager. And I like that it was unapologetic about that. Like it wasn't like, oh, I got involved and then I couldn't get out, or some typical story. It was like,
Hmm.
no, these wise guys are who I wanted to be like my whole
Yeah.
life. You know what I mean? And I liked that. And I liked the kind of the build up of like the things that he did over the years as a kid to gain their respect and kind of work his way in. Like it's treated almost like the way someone starts with like a menial job and works their way through a company, but it's like
Yeah.
it's doing that through like this Italian mobster family. And
Hmm.
what I like about it is it's I would say it's actually unapologetic about everything, really.
Yep.
It's just very straightforward. This is how the families operate. This is how they work. If you want to be a part of the family, this is how it goes. It also lets you know how dangerous it can be, just in general, even with your own family and friends. Like as the story progresses, as you get like 2/3 of the way, and he's honest about the fact that the same people that you trust, will smile as they kill you. Like if you've become a liability or what have you. So these are things you almost come to expect as you're going through this, which is a fascinating way to look at your family or your gang. That someone in your own
Hmm.
gang can just, and you might not even know if you did anything wrong, or if you if like I feel like that kind of uncertainty is like something I could personally never be comfortable with, but but this is his, like this is basically just his goal. And I liked watching how he grew into his role in a way, because he's someone that really thinks things through business wise. So he's kind of used a lot. He's trusted by some of the people in the family, especially for handling certain things that tend to involve running business and just making sure payments happen correctly, and etc. And it kind of goes through his life as he meets someone. There's some really interesting viewpoints on like Italian culture and Jewish culture in the film, and there's
Hmm.
almost like these similarity with like a lot of the wives end up being like Italian or Jewish,
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
which is really
All the
funny.
Karens.
Yeah, yeah, and then they're
Love it.
all like,
That's
I
not
love
like a
like
modern joke. They're all named
yeah,
Karen.
it kind of is, right?
Yeah.
Like it's like ahead of its time, but it's like,
Yeah.
and I love that like all the wives, like her, like the girlfriend's first time when she gets married, like when she's having her first like kind of wife play date, like all the gossip that's going on, like she's
Yeah.
hearing about every insecurity, everything that's going on behind, with all of their husbands, and she's just kind of learning, and she's almost seems shocked at first, and you just kind of get used to it, like
Yeah.
this is your
It's
life.
like
Um,
everybody's in their like big, comically large hair
yeah,
dryer and has big
yeah,
curls. And they're not
yeah,
like talking shit. Like he did the
no,
worst thing. She's like, I'm literally gonna fucking kill him. The guns in the
yeah,
dresser. I'm so
yeah,
sick. And she's
yeah,
just sitting there like taking all of this in. Like, I
yeah.
guess this is normal.
Yeah,
Like,
she's like, I guess she's like, God, what did I marry into? But then she's just like, well, I mean, I guess this is it. I think my favorite scene in the movie, though, to be honest, I loved the scene when her neighbor kind of assaulted her. And I
yeah.
love the scene when he brings her home and tells her to go inside, and then he
Mm,
just goes walking across the street with this gun, and
yep.
it. I kind of expected him to just like shoot him in the face, so I kind of like loved that it was kind of worse in a way. Like it's
Yeah.
like in front of his friends, he just takes the butt of this gun, and I love that the sound effects are loud, and he is
Mm,
just like beating this guy nearly to death in front of his friends. And the friends, what I find interesting though, is the friends are just watching and they're doing nothing about it, and you don't
hmm.
really know if that's because they're scared or if it's because they know who he is and they're like
Right.
not gonna fuck with it, right?
Yep.
And I like the idea that her character says in that moment most women would have ran away from this relationship essentially, but I didn't. And what I love about that scene is I can totally understand like not wanting to be a part of this world, but someone just did that for you. Like they cared
Yeah.
about you enough that they went over and beat the crap out of someone because he touched you. Like, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like it's
Yeah.
like there's something about that that I can understand the captivation, from her in that situation, especially with when you meet her parents, you know, and how kind of straight edge, you know, very Jewish they are about everything, and like they want her to kind of follow all of these. She even has to do the typical thing that they did back then, where you like lie to your parents and you're like, oh yeah, he's Jewish, you know.
Yeah.
and I, and I, and
She hides his cross on the necklace. She buttons up
yeah,
his shirt before he meets her mother.
exactly. Because like
Yeah.
back then, like it was super, super. You know, she liked him, and I imagine you probably did have to do that. You know, because culturally, it's kind of just how it was. But I think what I liked about the film was just it's how it delved into culture, really, like, and how culture
Yeah.
influenced so much of not just that era, but that the neighborhood. The neighborhood's kind of a character in a way, you know, especially as you meet more and more people of the neighborhood. And that's how a lot of mafia movies are, because they tend to run neighborhoods. So the neighborhood is kind of like this breathing character that has to be established if it's going to be a good movie.
Yeah.
Ultimately, I would say it was a very good movie. I liked it quite a bit. The only reason it's my least favorite is I would just say that, like, I've told you this before, mafia films are a specific genre I'm not as interested in. And it's not because there's anything bad with them. It's more just because, like, mafia films and war films are the two kinds of films that when I see them, I'm very happy I saw them. I think they're great, but they're never my first choice. It's always like, I'll get to it eventually. Like, I saw Saving Private Ryan like 2 years after it came out, like, and everybody was like, how could you? And I was like, I just, you know, I can't help it. Like, I don't know, you're into things or you're not, but like, and that's why I haven't seen Sopranos, which I know is one of the best shows ever. I've seen the first 2 episodes and they're very good. And I think what it is with me, you know me, I'm like, I overthink things. I can't help it. And like, there's just a huge part of like the Italian mafia culture where they're so Catholic, yet they're doing all this stuff, and it's just like I can't help rolling my eyes all the time. It's like, yes, you're so Christian, wink, wink, as you murder everybody and cheat people and steal their money. No, like, so it's kind of like even though the characters are great, like I have to admit the first 2 Godfather movies are masterpieces. I love them. They're very good. But each of them I have only seen once, because like it's like one of those things where it's like and there are other films where like there are bad guys that I'm still in it and along for the ride. But like that specific one, it's like I'm rarely rooting for anybody, you know? Like, they're awful, but also just the hypocrisy with the Catholic thing being so involved. It just, I find it funny. Like, it's almost like really fun. Like they'll murder someone and then be like, fucking A, you know, and they'll like do a cross, you know?
Like you really
Joe
took
Pesci,
it hard on that guy.
Dude,
like,
and I didn't realize that Joe Pesci was the like unstable mad dog in this movie. That was kind of hilarious. Like I was like, and I have to say thematically though, everything that happened with the characters, especially Joe Pesci's, is really warranted. Like it's like karma, really. The one thing I have to say is I did not expect the ending, which I really appreciated. I totally thought it was going to be like, you know, he takes over the family or he ends up in a bloodbath dead. I did not expect, I mean, this is like 40 years later, so I hope it's not a spoiler for anybody, but I did not expect him to be talking from witness protection as he screwed them over. And then the last couple lines of the movie are him bitching about how boring of a life he has to live.
Exactly.
That was actually my second favorite part of the movie. The end where he's like, this boring fucking neighborhood.
He's like, they sent me egg noodles and ketchup instead of spaghetti and marinara. So
but I liked it. I would say it's a good movie. It's a great movie. It's a very good movie.
I'm happy you liked it.
I'm happy I finally saw it.
I've never seen a movie flow the way Goodfellas flows before. The best way I could explain the tempo of this movie, it's a 2.5-hour movie that feels like an incredibly impressive montage. But you're following a story. The energy just bounces and bounces, especially once it gets to the second half. There are so many things going on from scene to scene to scene. And the way it's narrated with the characters, you never notice the time go by.
I agree. And like the way you said it feels like a montage, I totally know what you mean, because by the end of the film, I think I felt odd about it because I was like, it feels like a collection of scenes. But usually when I say that, I'm like, the movie was terrible because it feels like a collection of scenes and that's it. But for some reason, this worked. And I'm like, how does, of course, Scorsese can make that work. And it is a story, but it is a collection of scenes because there's so much going on. And there's actually a lot of characters. And it is giving you bits of each of them so that you know who they are. So it really is bouncing around a lot. Even when Ray Liotta's narrating, sometimes he's narrating like about an instance of how things work. And it's like one of the few times you're seeing a scene without him in it, because it's like showing you what's going on while he's describing how things work, even if he's not there, you know? But it works. It really works.
And this was the movie. There are so many things let me say this. It's like the quintessential movie of the 90s. So many things wouldn't exist without this movie's success and just how influential it was. And in fact, this movie kicked off an entirely new genre of mob movie because before this, Godfather was the huge one. Once Upon a Time in America. These were very
Yeah.
huge operatic, like dramatic
Yes.
stories.
And
You
this
know,
was not
this
operatic.
tore all that away. Like you said,
Yeah.
it starts with a murder and then it cuts back to the murderer's childhood. And
Yeah,
he's so excited to be
exactly.
part of this in crowd. And just like, and you know what? He's chasing the same thing that so many people are chasing. He's just chasing money and freedom of his time. He sees the way
Exactly.
that these people are respected. He sees them as celebrities and he says they don't have
Yep.
to take shit from anybody. They do what they want. They can go where they want. They get respect wherever they go. And I'm going to do whatever I can to get that.
And he
You know
also
what I mean?
liked the idea that being a part of them protects you. Like no one's gonna
Yeah.
fucking touch you because you're not alone. You know, you're part of you're part of that in crowd, and that in crowd protects itself. That's why nobody fucks with them. You know, and like I totally understand. That's the thing. Like even though I don't respect what they do, I understand the draw 100%.
Mm-hmm.
Like you know, I totally get it. Like for sure.
Yeah. And
But
I
you're right
suppose
though. This one
just
isn't as operatic at all, like the Godfather movies. Like those are like
no.
great cinema. And the weird thing is, I wouldn't say this isn't great cinema, but this is like it's like really just in your face, like violence and the way things are. And it's not trying to win an Oscar. It's trying to be just awesome. Like it's trying to be awesome and
Yeah.
honest in a way.
And
And it's still funny, but it feels very real, you know, like
yeah.
in a lot of ways. So.
And you know this came out in 1990, and the 80s was, I would say, similar to 2010 through 2020. Movies were a lot more PC. They didn't take as many
Yeah.
risks. They were played very straight, and they were played very, like, action movies were great fun. Romance movies were very sweet and left you either feeling with butterflies at the end or a little bit sad. But there was never anything that floored you. And you know,
It
this
gets
movie
boring.
comes out, it completely breaks that. And what do we get after that? We get things like Pulp Fiction, we get things like LA Confidential, we get The Sopranos, we get Heat, we get all of these we get this new wave of authentic feeling characters in violence. You know,
it's almost like a 90s new wave, basically.
It's almost like a 90s new wave. And this movie feels, it's funny because the movie is depicted through a voiceover, like through Ray Liotta's voiceover, as glamour. But you're not seeing glamour anywhere.
No.
Even when they're pulling off these like big heists, they're robbing a truck.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
And
that's the funnest part about it. Like he is just, you can tell to him this is just the best fucking life ever. And I like how unapologetic he is about it. Like there's no bullshit. Like he absolutely loves this. He lives for this. Like regardless of what's going on. Like you said, it doesn't even always match. But to him, this is the fucking cat's meow. You know, like this is the you know, creme de la creme, right? Of a life, basically.
My favorite sequence of the movie is towards the end after the main character gets into business with this side hustle of selling cocaine.
Yes,
and he's coked out, and there's a very long sequence that goes pretty much till the end of the movie, basically, of him being like tracked by the FBI. But it's played from his perspective. It's played from his perspective where he's incredibly paranoid about it. And like as an audience member, you think you could tell, but you also don't know. So you're leading through his paranoia of him like trying to spend time with his family, and then he's to break away from that and meet with his drug connect, and that doesn't go right. So he has to bring the drugs to like a girlfriend's house, and she's flipping out, and then he has to get back to the family.
And then the shitty babysitter he tells not to use the home phone, and of course she does. You're just like,
exactly.
It's so irritating. Like it's people like you that fuck everything up. It's like,
and your best friend, you're just following him in his day. It's essentially just this one sequence. And then at the end, it's all of a sudden you're at the end of the movie, and you've been following this day for like half an hour. And I think my favorite fourth wall break I've ever seen in a movie pops up where he's sitting in this courtroom, and he's literally like pointing to the people that he grew up with, that he always wanted to be with. And he's talking about it on the voiceover, and all of a sudden the voiceover cuts, and he gets off the witness stand and he talks to the audience about how he just betrayed everything he loved. And I'm just like, oh my god,
it's great,
awesome.
And it was so ahead of its time to do that. And what I like about it too is that like you can understand from his perspective his betrayal though, because technically they already tried to kill his wife, and she was smart
Yeah.
enough to not let it happen. And then
Mm-hmm.
he knows for a fact that Robert De Niro's character is trying to get rid of him. You know,
Mm-hmm.
especially because of what already happened with the wife. Like it's pretty much guaranteed. And
Yeah.
then, you know, Cicero gives him money, but then kind of turns his back on him. But you can understand Cicero's perspective because he told him not to get involved in anything else, right?
Yeah.
And he does his own thing. But you know, because now Robert De Niro's trying to. If Robert De Niro wasn't, the funny thing is, if Robert De Niro wasn't trying to kill him, none of this betrayal would have happened. So technically,
Right.
it's Robert De Niro's fault for being sleazy, and he's just trying to protect himself. So it's
Mm-hmm.
kind of like the betrayal at the end. I don't really feel bad for any of them because, like, technically, you know, it's
They
their
all
own
made their
doing.
bed.
They all made their bed exactly. And the fact that
Those
he ends up in witness
sequences.
protection and he's just bored that his life is going to be this boring now. Like,
Oh, there are so many Robert De Niro sequences. He plays this character Jimmy Conway, and that sequence
he's
after
great.
the heist where he's just getting furious with people for
Oh yeah.
showboating the
Oh yeah.
money. Where'd you get that fucking coat? Where'd that fucking car come from? How many times do I have to tell you?
I probably
just...
laughed more in that
Yeah.
in that like 10-minute section. Like it's like the fucking car and then the fucking fur coat, and he's just like, "What the fuck did I tell you, people?" Like, and it's like you're literally like surrounded by morons. Like literally, that's what it's like. That's why over the next 20 minutes when you just keep finding more of them dead, I was laughing so hard because I was like, I don't feel sorry for any of you idiots. Like, you guys just couldn't listen to the most basic things. Like, even the guy that was helping them murder people ends up hung frozen in the freezer. I was laughing about that. I was like,
yep. But yeah, that movie, I'm happy you've seen it. You are now part of everybody else in the world. Welcome.
Yeah, and the odd thing is I've seen the Godfather Trilogy and I've seen Casino, but I haven't seen this one, so it was kind of crazy.
Casino's also great.
Yeah, that was a good one. I saw that one when I was younger, though. I was like 15 or 16, so I probably should watch it again. But till this day, I remember the scene with the bats and them beating the guy to death. Like one of my biggest, one of my biggest things that makes my skin crawl is actually the idea of getting like beaten with a blunt instrument. To me, it's scarier than a bullet or a knife or anything. So the bat scene actually to this day makes my skin just crawl. Like
Oh, it's so violent. That entire movie
really is.
That's another visceral movie. I think it's another classic, incredible movie. I'm not even gonna. I mean, it's very easy to compare to Goodfellas because very similar cast, same director.
I would also say they're similar. They're similar in tone in terms of like not trying to be operatic, being just more like straightforward in terms of like. Yeah, like for sure.
Yeah, that's just the movie where Robert De Niro gets to play the straight kind of lace character.
And
Joe Pesci he's unhinged evil in this movie, but he's unhinged.
Oh no! In Casino, Joe Pesci's fucking terrifying.
And then what's funny, you haven't seen The Irishman yet, but Joe Pesci actually gets like the very calm, composed role, and he knocks it out of the park.
So he gets to, and he retired from acting too, so he came back to do that role from what I read. Yeah.
Oh, that's so good. But let's move on before I nerd out for another hour on Goodfellas.
So your turn. My second movie.
Yeah. Next was Blue is the Warmest Color, directed by oh my gosh. I am so sorry in advance. Abdelatif Kashish is, I believe, his name. I apologize if
I'm not perfect on it either, so I feel you. It's all good.
Yeah. This movie is starring Lea Seydoux and Adele Exarchopoulos. I probably butchered that too.
Yeah, and like you'd recognize one of them from like the new Bond film. She's actually in Spectre, and she's also in the new upcoming film as well.
She sure is. Or if you play video games and you're a Hideo Kojima fan, she's also one of the main characters in Death Stranding.
I did not know that. That is awesome.
I saw her. I was like, I recognize you.
Okay. So that's a pleasant surprise for you. I actually did not know that. That's really cool. Yeah. That's really cool.
So this is it's a Blue's Warmest Color is a love story about a young woman who is coming of age and finding her sexuality and the person that she wants to develop a relationship with. It starts with her as a junior in high school, kind of going through dating and relationships and her friendships at school until she eventually goes out one night and she meets another woman at a bar and they develop a relationship. And the movie tracks the relationship for years and years into what comes as this. I mean, it's also been out for 20 years, right?
Yeah, 2013, I think. So it's been out at least, quite a while.
Yeah.
Like 8 years, so. And the graphic
It.
novel came out in like 2010, I think. So
I'll say this: a very powerful ending is the word that I
yes,
will use.
very.
Let's get the obvious out of the way for anybody who's familiar with this movie. Incredibly graphic,
Yeah,
for
it is.
sure. Just sex and intimacy is depicted very straightforward, and
Well, I feel like it would
uh,
be considered incredibly graphic, like maybe in the U.S. I don't know if people in Europe would consider it incredibly graphic, but I mean, I could be wrong. I don't know.
you may be right. I mean, there is a 7 minute sex scene that's really graphic. I'm not sure,
I
Griffin.
don't know.
I'm not
It
saying
is, but
graphic in any way that's
like
negative. I'm just
bad. Yeah,
saying I wouldn't
very.
watch it
It's
with your
very
mother.
explicit.
Is all I'm saying.
No, no, it's very. It's
I'm just
very.
saying I wouldn't watch it with
It's
your
very
mother. Is all.
explicit. It's very
Yeah.
explicit. Like that scene is talked about a lot. So
Yeah. It is very explicit. Getting that out of the way, the relationship that's depicted in this movie is very authentic feeling, very beautiful.
very.
The character that we follow, Adele's character, who plays a character named Adele in the movie, um, it was just so um, not understandable. She was so relatable. Like, there's a
Yes, I
scene
agree.
early on where she tries to see if she can develop a relationship with this boy, and she has to break up with him. And the way that she breaks up with him, and they're sitting on a bench, and there's this awkwardness to it, along with the pain. And I was like, ooh, like I've been
Yeah,
there. That shit feels like
yeah,
right. That's exactly what breaking
it.
up with someone feels like. That's crazy.
Yeah, it's.
And then there's a scene where she's broken up with as well, and I'm like, that's what that feels like. Like that's
Yeah,
they get the awkwardness correctly. You know what I
yes,
mean?
which is hard to get. I feel like a lot of people try to do that and it feels forced, or they try to do it with like music to force you to feel a certain way or something. Like this movie does a lot of silence or really subtle score. Like it lets the performances and the way it's directed really speak for it. Like
Hmm. Yeah, that's totally right. And I think the authenticity of these impactful moments of connection with people was really well done. And I give that more so to the actors more so than the direction. One thing about this movie that I didn't care much for is the camera work and cinematography.
oh
I
really? Interesting.
Really, I felt that everything was always a close up for the most part. I don't want
Yeah.
to say the direction as a whole I didn't like, because the way that the movie flowed and it was edited always kept my attention, and there are some really beautiful shots.
Hmm.
Um, but the way that the camera is just always on the characters' faces really lets the performances shine. Like, they
Yeah.
knock it out of the park.
Yeah, it
Um,
seemed it seemed deliberate. Like that's the thing. Like
yeah.
I kind of I feel like it was weird. Normally I would agree, but I think I kind of liked it because it almost felt. I think I said this to you. It's a really visceral film in the sense that it's cinema, but something about it, like because of the way it's shot, it almost feels like you're watching a documentary, like in a way, but not really. Like,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Like I don't know how else to describe it. It's like very. It's more like you're just right there in the middle of this thing rather than it being just a movie. Like,
Hmm. Hmm.
and I thought that
I
quality is what made it really interesting to me. I don't know.
I'd say less so a critique, more so taste.
No,
You
no,
know.
no. Yeah, I totally can understand what you mean. So
Yeah.
for sure.
But I'd say one of the things that I love that I didn't expect in this movie is I'm a sucker for implementation of music, and
Hmm.
in this movie, especially dance. And
Hmm.
dance is a recurring, I guess you could call it a theme, but the characters, you understand the emotions that they're going through throughout their life in series of dance scenes with Adele. She dances with her friends. She dances with a potential lover. They dance. No, they don't dance briefly when they meet the two leads, but they do have a dance scene as well.
Hmm.
And I feel like the kind of freedom of expression that's shown in the movie, it was really, really touching. Um, I do think that it may have been a little bit overly long. I did realize that it was 3 hours. About 2 hours into the movie, I was like, "Ooh, we're still moving."
Yeah.
Um,
Yes. That is a
so I think,
critique some people have had. Yeah.
yeah, I think that maybe there were some scenes that could have been pulled back a little bit. But I will say, as a love story and a depiction of a very passionate relationship, this movie felt really authentic, really real. I think if as you said, Alea Sadu is in the Bond movies, if the other lead, Adele, isn't like making it as a star, I'd be shocked,
Yeah, because
because
they're
they
both
are
fantastic.
incredible.
Yeah,
Yeah. And this was an incredibly daring movie for them to participate in,
for sure.
as well.
For
So
sure.
they're very brave, they're very bold, they're very impressive and incredible, and all of those things, and just so much respect for them.
Yeah, and that was the other thing. I remember this movie was recommended to me. I don't remember I think it was somebody in college or something, but they didn't tell me anything about what it was about, and it was one of those things. I think I was actually with my friend Sean. We were just looking for
Mm-hmm.
something to watch, and I was like, "I heard this movie's really good." He goes, "Oh, I heard it was too," and we just started it. So I had no idea what it was about. So when it just kind of hits you, when it just starts getting really, really real, and it just feels so authentic and just so human. Like I think we were both just like quiet the whole movie. Like we were just like watching it. Like, and at the end I was like, that was so good. He goes, right? I was thinking the same thing. He was like, it felt so just genuine, and I was like, yeah, like I think that's what I loved about it, and it goes through all the aspects of the relationship. And I mean, spoilers, sorry, but like the relationship doesn't really work out, and but it goes
Yeah.
through the before the relationship, and the aftermath that I feel like a lot of people can really relate to, especially you know when let's just say one person wishes it didn't end, like it,
Yeah.
it's kind of tragic, but also just like just really real, um and I don't know, yeah, there's just something about that film that just it was so realistic to me. It was one of the first times in my life where I felt like I saw something that, I mean, there are people like Noah Baumbach and stuff who do stuff like this more often now. Like Marriage Story is another one I'd put in this category where it feels really real. I've been told Blue Valentine is like that too, but I've never seen that
Yeah.
movie.
Big time.
I've been told, yeah, but I think this was the first time back then I had seen a film in this kind of style where it feels so viscerally real that I had never experienced something like that by the end of the film, where it didn't feel like melodrama, it didn't feel like a cinematic Oscar, like it was just trying to be glorious. It felt so real. It's like I was just given this. It's like I was just right in the middle of these people in their lives throughout this entire block of chunk of their life, and I got to experience it with them. And it was I don't know, it's
Yeah.
just a really interesting experience for me. So
Yeah. I would say, when I first was seeing the big controversial sex scenes, I was like, yeah, this is pretty graphic. This may be a little
yeah,
exploitative, but when you get to the end of the movie and they're going through those final conversations
yes,
and like the longing for that part of their relationship, when they have that discussion, I was like, it all comes together. That's
exactly.
much more painful when you kind of see how the relationship ends. And the ending
Yeah,
of this movie pissed me off, man.
I know. Me too. Me too. I was like, God damn it! It's
I
like,
know.
it's
It was
true. It's
it
true.
wasn't even so much that, like, of course you want them to be together at the end because the performances are so good, but it's more so just how it all crumbled
Yeah,
because
it
of
was.
inability to
Yeah.
communicate, being at
Yep.
different places in their lives, and
Yep. And I feel
you
like that
know,
happens too. Like that's why they say like a communication is like one of the biggest aspects to whether relationships work or not. And it's like you're watching this failure of communication like just rip apart something that you know can be
yeah,
beautiful. You've seen it beautiful. You've seen it when it's blossoming, right?
yeah,
And it's just, yeah, I'm with you. And I kind of felt the same way when I saw that scene. I was like, wow, this is going on for a while. And I was like, I mean, it does feel passionate and everything, but I was kind of thinking like, it probably didn't need to be this long. But then I agree. By the end of the movie, you do kind of, it harkens back to like those passions, and that it really
hmm,
does. It does feel like it makes that ending more impactful because you did experience that length. You experienced all of it. You experienced, everything that they're drawing from, in
yeah,
those conversations, and it really does. Like I would assume that's why the director did make it longer, is my assumption. But like, yeah, it does just work by the end of the movie. So yeah,
yeah.
and I remember it was really,
Um,
really highly praised when it first came out. So
yeah, makes sense. This one, I mean, I highly recommend it as long as you're open to 3 hours of potential heartbreak.
yep,
So,
yeah, yeah. Sorry for setting you up for sadness. I didn't even realize that life is a house, and then that man, I don't want you to be depressed, but I didn't realize it until I recommended it.
yeah, when I watched these two movies, I was like, we were talking about movies that like made us feel, and I was like, I feel like I misunderstood the subject matter. Why am I crying in the club right now?
No, it's all good. It's all good. Okay, so
No,
your the next film you recommended definitely made me feel. It made me feel completely entertained, and I was just in a very happy mood by the end of it. And that is The Graduate, which it's
sweet.
another film that was on my list. It's part of the new Hollywood wave. Mike Nichols film. and starring Dustin Hoffman, Anna Bancroft, and Catherine Ross. I have heard of Anna. I've heard of Anne Bancroft before. And of course Dustin Hoffman, who hasn't. So the cool thing about this is it's been on my list for quite a while, but I had no idea what it was about. I never looked into it for some reason because of the way the cover looks. I almost thought it was going to be like a more mature version of like Ferris Bueller's Day Off. I have no idea why.
Yeah.
Like I have no idea why. So I love how it started because I feel like it really just starts by just following him. And I like that it does that because you see how uncomfortable he is as a character right now, because he seemingly is, celebrating this big, victory with his, I guess it's a scholarship and school and everything. And his parents, he's clearly from like an affluent family, they have a lot of money, big house, and they're showing him off in this party, but he looks really, really uncomfortable. And he kind of implies that like, he's uncomfortable because he doesn't know what he's going to do with his life. He
Yeah.
doesn't, and it seems like his discomfort means nothing to his parents. It means nothing to the people around him. All they want to just do is keep, showing him off. It's this, your kid's the prize. Look at my awesome kid and
Yeah.
everything he's doing. While he's sitting here seemingly extremely anxious, really doesn't want to be at this party. It's clearly his parents are making him. And he just wants to get away from all of it, really. And
Yeah.
and it's because he just doesn't know where he's going. And that's a scary feeling. I feel like we can relate to that.
Hmm.
But then it quickly gets he multiple times he's trying to get away from this party. And I also want to point out, you kind of, it becomes more apparent over the next few scenes, but you kind of feel like he's um slightly socially awkward, but like not in
Hmm.
an not in an extreme way. Like he's very polite. He's well mannered. He introduces himself. He does all the things you're expecting, but he is a little socially awkward. Like he's a little bit more monotoned in terms of his inflections and things. And he's kind of just, he says what's on his mind sometimes. Like almost like a
Hmm.
kid does. But he's clearly doing well in college and everything, so it's not like he's stupid or anything like that. Like I don't want to imply that he has any kind of deficit. It's more just he's just a little socially awkward. And
Hmm.
but he wants to get away from this party, and he kind of does. He goes up, and an older woman comes up, and seemingly it seems like she knew he was getting away from the party, and she kind of follows him up there. So my first thought was like, do you know, is this going to be one of those films where, like, my first thought it was going to be like, she sees he's upset, so older woman kind of coaxes him into just having like a night of fun to get him
Yep.
out of this mood. Like that's kind of what, and it almost seems like it's going to be that way. And then she gets him to, like, drive her back to her house because she needs a ride or whatever. So he does, and then when he gets there, that's when it just starts to get really fun,
Yeah.
because she's offering him alcohol. He's 20, he's not 21 yet. All these things. It seems very much like she's kind of beckoning him,
Hmm.
upstairs, and he's noticing this, and he's like, you can tell he's getting more and more uncomfortable. And the funny part is he keeps trying to leave, and she keeps finding reasons to get him to stay, to help her upstairs. She tells him that, will you come inside? He doesn't want to, but
Hmm.
she's like, I'm afraid until I turn on the lights. And then and once she turns the lights, he tries to leave, and then she offers him a drink, and then she's like, will you stay with me till my husband gets home? And he's just so awkward, and he keeps, no, I really need to go, Mrs. Like the whole
Robinson,
time,
Mrs.
Mrs.
Robinson.
Robinson, yeah. And it eventually leads to an entire situation where she goes upstairs, and by now the audience is 100% sure of what's happening, and he
Yeah.
is too, and he keeps trying to leave. And
Yeah.
it's this beautiful older woman, and and then she finally gets him to go upstairs, and at one point he's like, that's it, I'm leaving, blah blah blah. And she's like, oh, can you bring this upstairs, as she's trying to leave, and he's like, no. And then she like walks off screen, and she's like, fine, well then can you just put it in my daughter's room? And he even tries to come, my favorite part is when he tries to leave it on the stairs, and she's like, you're being ridiculous, would you, like
Yeah.
it's like she gets angry, right? And she's the one being manipulative. So I like that whole sequence. I was laughing so hard, you have no idea. Like,
Yep.
and he, Dustin Hoffman, plays this, anxiety ridden at this point, kind of socially awkward person that just wants to leave. And he plays it so well that that scene, honestly, I was so happy in the first 20 minutes of this film. Like I could not stop laughing. And then from there, the film just kind of progresses more and more. It's not what you thought it was going to be. And then you kind of see things coming. And then there's like a situation where
Yeah.
they're asking him to take out their daughter, and the
Yep.
awkwardness of it, you're just
Yep.
like, oh my God, I know where this is going. And then sure enough,
Yeah.
kind of what you think happens. But the person that you thought was just here trying to give him a good time because she noticed he was having a hard time ends up being a villain actually throughout the
Yeah.
film in a lot of ways. So I thought the movie was really refreshing, and I could totally see why it's part of that new wave, because you really don't see a lot of things coming. Like it feels like it
Hmm.
goes from bad to worse in a lot of situations, but I feel like it's not in the way you expect it to go. It was just very
Yes.
refreshing for me, and I felt so sorry for this character. Like, even the next scene, his parents are having him try on this stupid diving outfit, and like he doesn't want to do it, and it's really funny. And then there's like this beautiful shot of him being in the pool. He jumps in for them, and then he wants to leave, and they shove him back down because it's
Yeah.
all about them, right? And there's
Yep.
this amazing scene. It's a wide shot. He's just sitting under the water, completely alone, and I feel like that shot is very deliberate, and it's showing you he's just drowning underwater by himself. His
Yep.
parents don't even care. He's completely alone, you know. And even when he tries to go back up, they push him under the water. Like, I feel like that entire scene is so symbolic of how he feels about his life right now.
Yeah.
And then as he starts sleeping with this older woman, he kind of starts to loosen up and have less, you know, uh,
Hmm.
he's less rigid about things, which is starting to piss his parents off. But I feel like, in a way, what happened, it sucks, but it's also good because it did break him out of this mold of, caring so much about pleasing people that really don't seem to care about you. Because I
Yeah.
feel like what happened at the end, I don't think it ever would have happened if he hadn't had this kind of awakening with the mother, and with, how he kind of stopped planning out every minute of his life. And like, the impulsiveness of the end, I think, only works because of what he went through. And he's still kind of awkward and everything by the end of the film, but he has grown as a person to go for it, if that makes sense, like in
Yeah.
a way. So it's a very, very interesting film. And I feel like I could just keep going on about it, but I really, really enjoyed The Graduate. Like, it's something I plan to watch again at some point, and it was really funny. Like, it was really,
Hmm.
like, I don't know if it would be on a second viewing, but I mean, I can't wait to find out, because I found his performance is what makes it really funny. Dustin Hoffman's performance in this film, I think, is very good. It also makes me realize why I bet you he was the first choice for, like, Rain Man. Now that I've seen this movie, I feel
Right.
like
Yeah.
it's like a precursor, like, not completely, but I feel like someone saw this and was like, what about Dustin Hoffman?
Yeah.
For
Yeah.
real. Because, yeah.
Um,
But yeah, I really enjoyed
I,
it. And thank you
I,
for recommending it.
dude, thank you for enjoying it. This has one of my favorite movie endings of any
It's
movie
great.
ever.
It is
And
great.
you're right. He's kind of, there's a lot of images of him underwater. There's also an image of him in front of a fish tank.
Yep.
That happens pretty often in the movie. And it's really just it's a young man who has been kind of given direction all of his life, and now he's graduated college, and he has
Yep.
no idea who he is or what he wants to do. He's just been doing what people tell him to do,
And he
now
feels
all
like
of a
he's
sudden
drowning. And that's
all of a
why the
sudden he's
water
being
thing.
trophied too.
Yeah,
It's finally
exactly.
like, look at him, and he's like, what?
Yeah.
So through
And
the events, like, yeah, he meets Mrs. Robinson. She, they
Mrs.
hook up and they
Robinson.
start sleeping together. It's Mrs. Robinson.
It's Mrs. Robinson, man. And that's Anne
And,
Bancroft, if I'm correct, right?
yep,
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
correct.
Yeah.
And my favorite thing about this movie is the way the ending sits with the character's choices. Because even in the end, he's making decisions, but they're all impulsive decisions. They're not thought out decisions anymore. And
but that's very unlike him compared to the beginning, which I like.
You know what I found interesting was at the end, it's super unlike him. He goes through that huge change, and then he sits with that huge impulsive decision of running into the wedding at the end and going through that whole thing, and they run away together. And then the camera just sits with them. And
I love that.
The excitement fades away. And then they're just sitting there like, what did we just do?
Yeah,
like,
that was one of my favorite moments. I love that it didn't just cut away to the bus. It sits there for like a good minute, and you watch them. You watch both characters going through their minds, like, what do we just do? Like, where do we go from here?
Do we even
neither
like
of
each other?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Neither of them even know, but they're like, well, we did it. So, but you can tell them they're thinking through everything that just happened. And
Yeah.
it's a very honest ending. I liked it.
Yeah.
Like, it's good. Yeah.
So do we go to the airport or like
Yeah.
what's next for us?
It's like, do we just stay on the bus and see where it goes?
Right.
Also, what are our money plans? Do we need to get jobs? Like, I think our
Yeah.
parents are both going to disown us. So where are we going right now? Like,
Yeah.
I have
Yeah.
a feeling they're going to stop paying for college. So, like,
Uh, but I related to his character a lot in the movie. I had a lot of struggles growing up, but from the parenting that I always got, it's like I couldn't do anything wrong. And I was sitting there making a lot of mistakes, just being told how well I was doing. And just the awkwardness of being in that environment, I related to him so much. And the kind of impulsive decisions he makes because of that. I thought it was depicted so well and so charmingly by Dustin
oh,
Hoffman.
100%. His performance it's kind of spectacular in that movie because his performance is a big reason why you're rooting for him. Like for real. Like his performance is a huge just triumph in this movie. I genuinely feel so. And it might seem simple, but I really don't think it is. Especially if you've seen Dustin Hoffman in interviews and stuff, and I have. He's nothing like that. That was all just like he was great in this movie. Like he really, really was.
Yeah. So I mean this is a coming of age movie like no other. So if you're interested in watching somebody find themselves in the most obscure way possible,
For sure.
1967.
Yeah, it's really great. It's really great. I would definitely recommend it. I'm really happy because like I feel like a lot of the movies that you recommend that I haven't seen, they're all films that are on my list. I haven't gotten to it, so I love these episodes because it's like forcing me to not make up any excuses. I have to watch them, right? Like, and I'm very grateful every time. So,
and,
okay,
good segue moment. A movie that's been on my list for years because you've been recommending it for years was Contact.
Yeah,
and for some reason, I know why. It's because I know I love Jodie Foster, but
I do. I also love Robert Zemeckis, though. I've noticed some of my favorite films. Like when I look at some of my favorite films from different genres, sci-fi, family films, and drama, Forrest Gump is one of my favorites. He directed that.
Yeah.
Who Framed Roger Rabbit is one of my favorite family films of all time. He directed that. And then Contact, one of my favorite sci-fi films of all time. He directed that. So I don't know why I don't put him in my list as one of my favorite directors, because apparently he's made some of my favorite movies. So.
Because he's inconsistent. He's also made some tough ones too.
Maybe.
But he has made some of the greatest of all time. And you know what I got from this movie the most is fuck Tom Skerritt.
I know, bro. Like I've never been happier to see a character die. Like I'm just gonna be honest. And Tom Skerritt's local, by the way. Some actors I know him. I think he lives over on Whidbey Island. Yeah, he lives over on Whidbey Island, I believe. So he's.
Well, I loved him in Alien, and I
he's a great actor. But yeah, that means he's great though, because he makes you hate him. The writing and then his performance, you're just like, you fucker. Like you told her the whole movie this is a waste of time, and then the moment she finds something, you're the one that's gonna go. Like you're just like, oh, it's the worst. Like he's so awful. Like he really is.
The absolute worst. But quick synopsis. Jodie Foster plays Dr. Ellie Arroway, and she is fascinated with communication and being able to meet and speak with people from as far away possible. Not only physically, but there are also religious and philosophical implications of connecting with those who have passed on. She's growing up from a single parent.
She's a rational empiricist all the way. Like
yeah, exactly. So through the story, she eventually, through her career, makes contact with what could be an alien race, and herself and the world have to deal with the religious, philosophical, and scientific implications of what that could mean for society, and she's in the middle of it all. It was amazing. I can't believe I've waited so long to see it. Jodie Foster, who's one of my favorite actresses, I've never seen her so disrespected in a movie for so long. I was like, oh my God.
Oh yeah.
Yep.
But I feel like that disrespect, and also the way she treats Matthew McConaughey's characters, views the whole movie, makes that ending monologue so beautiful, because even in science there are situations where sometimes something happens and you know it to be true, but but what I like about that is it doesn't go too far into that, and it still confirms itself with the 14 hours of footage, proving that there is actual evidence of her situation.
Yeah.
Like I'm very happy that they did that, because this was originally based on a book by Carl Sagan, by the way. He wrote the original fictional novel. And I'm told that some of the religious implications were a bit
Hmm.
more extreme in this movie than they were in the book. So I kind of like how they uh, kind of explored that duality in a way. And
Yeah.
so
They handled the scientific implications and the religious implications incredibly respectfully, and
they did.
that's a debate that very commonly leads into a lot of arguments. I mean,
Yeah.
arguments are had in the movie, but it shows respect to each side, which I thought
Yes, it
was
does.
really beautiful.
Yeah, and I'm a rational empiricist all the way. I'm not religious at all, but like
Same.
that's one of the things that like about that film I thought was beautiful. Like the way he melded the two, uh, it was just a beautiful film. Like I don't know how else to describe it, but a beautiful movie. Like
Yeah. Very, very rarely do I tend to side on the side of the religious characters, but there was one scene that I thought was really beautiful where Matthew McConaughey's character is on this panel and they're interviewing this
yeah,
panel of people who are going to have the opportunity to go and meet this extraterrestrial life.
yeah.
And Matthew McConaughey asks her if she believes in God. And she's a scientist. So she's like, I believe what has empirical data, what I can see, what I can hear, what I can feel. And he makes the argument later in the film that he's not comfortable sending anybody to sending a single person to the ends of the universe who thinks that 95% of the world is irrational. And I was like, that's a great argument, especially to a scientist. You know what I mean? Like there's some data there. And that's very painful for her because that's her dream, you know.
Yeah.
But at the same time, she would be a representative of the world, and the majority of the world
And
does
it's not
believe
and
in a
it
higher power.
yeah, and it's not about whether and in that situation when you're you know kind of portraying the rest of your species, I do understand whether the species is right or wrong. It's about
Mm-hmm.
portraying them honestly, and
Exactly.
yeah, and I do understand his argument there. Yeah, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
it's a very good
Um,
scene.
but the scenes that really hit home for me is there's a scene, and this one I won't spoil because I really want people. I somehow avoided this movie for so long. It came out in '97.
Hmm.
There's a scene where she has the opportunity to speak with her father in a
Yeah.
way,
Yes.
and
Oh,
from that point on,
it's
and
so
multiple other
good.
scenes, every other scene from that point to the end of the movie where Jodie Foster is depicting any emotion, I'm like, so I'm holding back tears for the rest of this movie. Is this what
Yeah,
we're doing today?
basically.
Like,
Yeah,
is this what we're doing
basically.
today? Yeah.
Basically. Especially after
Uh,
the opening scene and the heart attack and that amazing one shot that then leads to her trying to speak to her dad in the stars. Like it's so thematically it's so good. It's just so good. Uh, it's
yeah.
so good.
So good. I really can't sing this praise enough. I don't even know where else to go without kind of spoiling the themes of this movie. But if you want a movie that I wouldn't say challenges the conversation around science and religion, because it doesn't challenge it, but it shows a lot of respect and appreciation to that conversation. It is a precursor to a lot of sci-fi movies that you may very much love. The two big ones that come to
Yes.
mind are Interstellar and Arrival.
Yeah, for
They
sure.
owe a lot to this film.
Yes.
Um,
Especially, dude, the
and
travel sequence in Interstellar. Come
oh,
on. Like
absolutely.
now that you've seen things like, yeah,
Yeah,
that's why some people were like, I've never seen anything like this. I was like, I've seen
I
some
have.
things kind of
Yeah,
like this. Yeah. I mean, he did an amazing job, don't get me wrong, but I was like, so many people haven't seen Contact.
yeah.
Like,
Um, I the only this is and this movie's pretty close to a 10 for me, but the thing that I did think was really funny was just how convenient John Hurt was as this mad scientist fairy godfather. Like, are you having trouble, Jodie Foster? Allow me to
I,
take that trouble
I,
away.
I won't lie. I won't lie. I actually loved that. I loved
Yeah,
the idea. I loved the idea of someone that's so rich and
yeah,
has so much faith in science
yep,
that he secretly did his own thing because he expects other people to fuck up. Like it's
yep,
like
yep.
he's like I'm so rich. I'm doing my own little thing on the
He
side
is
just
so
in
rich
case.
in that movie. Like the part where he calls her. No, like
Yeah.
he has somebody put like this decrypted device in her apartment. She calls him and he's like upside down in space. Like, I
Yeah.
didn't want to be on Earth anymore, Jodie Foster. I was like,
know.
you Jeff Bezos ass.
Yeah, he's literally like a Jeff Bezos, Elon Musk, like motherfucker
Yeah,
who's like dying of cancer, and he's like, I follow my own rules, just floating
yeah.
around. He's like, how are you doing?
But
He's like,
it was
well, once again, I've saved the day. I expected one of those zealots to possibly cause a problem, but I have a secret for you. It's a gift just from me to
yep,
you. He's like a
exactly.
good Scrooge. He's like a
He is a
good
good Scrooge.
Scrooge. He's a good Scrooge. Yeah, I love
So
it.
thank you. This was my favorite of the ones you recommended. I recommend it to
Sure.
everybody.
Yeah, it's one of my. If I had to pick five films that are five of my top favorites of all time, and I couldn't, do five per category, Contact would 100% be in my top five. It's one of my favorite films that's ever been made. I think it's so well written, so well directed, so well performed. It's beautifully shot. Like, I don't think the score is beautiful. Like, I don't think you could say anything. I don't know what you could say bad about it. Like, it's just so good. It's like a
Yeah,
perfect film to me.
yeah.
Um,
I think it was pretty perfect as well. Freaking beautiful, in fact. You
okay.
know what else is beautiful?
Yes.
Sunrises and my
Before
transitions.
Sunrise, Richard Linklater, like falling in love as like I guess I could say it is cinematic, but it's also very visceral too. I think so. Okay, so before Sunrise, um, I I actually loved it. Like I would say I liked it and Graduate equally, but they're very different kind of films. But if I had to pick my favorite film, it would have been this one from this recommendation trilogy here that you had. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I think that Ethan Hawke and Julie Delpy's performances are so they feel subtle in the sense that they're like it almost feels like Richard Linklater pulled like a David Fincher where it's like, let's do 1,000 takes so that we get the acting out. I want you to just be like
Right.
real people. Like they feel like such real people. At no point in this film do I feel like they're characters. I feel like they are just real people. And I loved I I liked how different they are in terms of uh their personalities and just the way they approach things. Like I feel like I can really relate to Ethan Hawke quite a bit and how like overly analytical he is about everything and how he clearly sees beauty in things, but he can also be very pessimistic. Especially like the scene with like the fortune teller and everything, because like I'm
Yeah.
totally like I feel like I would totally be like that. I probably wouldn't say as much unless you asked me, but that would be my thought process the whole
Just
time. Like I could even
complete
probably
skeptic right out the
yeah,
gate.
I'm a total skeptic, and I'd probably be like, I could probably even tell you which. And nowadays it's even easier because they'll have you like sign up for like readings and stuff, and you give them your name, so they'll like find you on Facebook and shit, and they'll like learn about you before you get there and stuff. Anyway, my
Yeah.
point is, my point is, I can relate to Ethan Hawke in a way, but like I liked the subtleties of I really liked the subtleties of certain situations when they're having conversations, and I feel like this has to be a director thing because he had to have made sure to capture these things. Like I liked how the entire scene with the psychic, if you
Mm-hmm.
pay close attention when he's really getting into it, you can see just slightly Julie Delpy's character. You could see like her noticing for the first time certain aspects of his personality that she doesn't like, right?
Yeah.
Um, and what I like about that is it makes this whole chance meeting feel genuine because I feel like even if you love somebody, even if someone ends up being perfect, there are going to be certain things about each other that drive you nuts or that you don't know that you have to think about. Am I cool with dealing with that if I stay in this relationship, right?
Yeah.
Those are parts of making a relationship work, and I like that she does another thing I like is that she calls him on it later like because
Mm-hmm.
like there's that game that is a trap. It's a total trap where it's
Yep.
like if there was one thing about me I didn't like, it's like and I like how
Total
honest
trap.
they are about it. It's a total trap, but like and I loved it because she mentioned exactly what I thought she was going to mention. Like, and what I like about it is it's really subtle in performance, but you did see it. Like you saw. Um,
Yeah.
it's not a break in character. It's you saw her noticing something about his character. And I feel like it's a really interesting film just because it's I feel it's very honest about when people meet, you don't know each other, so you just talk about like wildly different
Everything.
things. Yeah,
Yeah.
everything. There's no focus. That's why I feel like in movies when people have these perfect conversations that foreshadow something later, it doesn't it feels cinematic, but it doesn't feel real. Like this movie feels
Yeah.
real because they talk about it's almost like Tarantino where it's like random. Like he'll beeline off on different things because that's how it is.
Yeah.
Um and I also feel like the idea of there is something very romantic about, you know, why don't you just get off the train with me and we'll just spend the day
In Vienna.
in this
Yeah.
amazing European city. Yeah, right?
Yeah.
That's so beautiful, that a lot of people visit. Um
Yeah.
I mean, it's a beautiful setting for this. I also like that it seems like the director really planned it out to feel really real in the sense that, like I said, some things don't come full circle like they do in films. Like I feel like
Hmm.
the first conversation you have with people and they tell them about the play that they're a part
Yeah.
of, I think you just assume that they're going to go to it, right? Because that's what most movies would do. Instead they
Yeah.
laugh later about forgetting about it and not,
Yeah.
not not attending it, like um
Yep.
it's I don't know what else. It's just like a really beautiful movie. Like it makes me really really excited about seeing the next two because I'm actually more excited to see like when they meet each other 10 years later with their life experiences. Like, is she more jaded? Is he more optimistic? Or is he the same? Like, because life, people are who they are, but life does alter you slightly. And I'm really really excited to see when they meet again how it picks up, if there's an awkwardness from time past. Like it really makes you feel by the end of the film you're really invested in these characters. I almost feel like if they hadn't made sequels, people would have been mad. like you know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like, because the way it ends, you really really want.
Are they going to meet at the fucking train
Yeah,
station?
yeah. Like, are they gonna
Yeah.
meet 6 months later? Like, for real?
Yeah.
Like by the end of it, I was like, I couldn't imagine watching this, being so invested. And now 10 years go by, and let's say 9 years go by, and you haven't heard
Hmm.
anything about another movie, and you're like, what the
Yeah.
like, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
so
I
I
could
I was
speak
really grateful.
to awesome. I can speak to two things that I think this movie does better than anyone else or that I've seen. I've never seen greater chemistry on screen
I
before
agree.
between
I
two
agree.
leads. And
I
I've
agree.
also never seen a moment of connection in another movie like the scene in the record store in this movie, where they're
Yes,
sharing the headphones and they go into the booth together and
that's a
they're kind of
beautiful scene.
dodging each other's eyes. And I was
Yeah,
like, that's one of those things where it just sets you back and you're like, holy shit, this is something special. This is a
yeah,
little more well thought out. And the entire concept of the movie is, you're right, it's, can we take a skeptic and a romantic and can we make them fall in love in a day?
exactly.
What would they
Yeah,
talk about? And what would they,
yeah,
can we keep an audience engaged in that conversation for hours? The
yeah.
answer is yes. Like, what are your thoughts on politics? What are your thoughts on where you live? Who do you want to be? Where have you been? All of these things. You just spend time with these people, and it's not like it follows a plot. I mean, it kind of does. It follows like plot points, but it's all through these conversations that you don't even notice, like this kind of like rise and fall and change in character, because it
Yeah.
just feels like two people talking and you're engaged with it.
And that's what I loved about it. Like, it still feels cinematic in the sense that you're seeing this beautiful city and there's a setting and everything, but it really just is about these two people and you experiencing things as they do. I also loved, I loved the guy who doesn't just ask for money. He asks them,
Mm-hmm.
I'll write you a poem, and if you like
Yeah.
it, you can give me money. And
Yeah.
and it turns out to be kind of beautiful, and she
Mm-hmm.
pays him, and then of course later he kind of shits on it, like just slightly, where
Yeah.
he's like he probably had some of that planned. And then
Exactly.
just like, because he's a skeptic, right? Like,
Yep.
and she doesn't like and you can tell she doesn't like it's not that she doesn't like him when he does that. It's more like she likes to see the dreamy, you know romantic, like she likes to see the beauty in it rather than, like maybe he's right, but she doesn't care because it was beautiful to her, and I can understand that too, right? So I don't know, like I think that's another thing. Like, I have a different perspective having this recommended to me when I know that there's two more, because I'm actually so excited to see who they become as they get older and how that affects their relationship. Um,
like I'm actually super super excited to watch the next two. I'm just gonna be honest, like
Yeah.
quite a bit. Okay.
Cool.
So, but yeah, thank you very much for recommending it. I really loved it. So
Thank you. And I loved all your movies too. Fortune, this has been awesome.
yes, thank you. It has been wonderful. I hope we do another recommendation episode soon.
We sure will. I know we're looking forward to everything that we could see in October. Little sneak peek at Mike Flanagan's new show. Wink, wink.
It's amazing. We're going to be talking about this next episode. I'm going to be doing, just for you guys know, I'm going to be doing a YouTube video on this for sure. So I'm going to be doing like some kind of video essay or what have you. Midnight Mass was amazing. I totally recommend it.
Awesome. Well, then I will see you in a couple weeks, my friend.
All right. Have fun, and I will see you guys next time. This is Fortune.
See you all next time. This is Dillon.
All right. Have a good night, everybody. Thanks for joining us.
Bye.